Yeah, everybody's at the write-a-thon. I was watching the chat number 4 or 5. Chat number 5. Chat number 5. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm not expecting a lot of people to show up today. And I got my nice mic plugged in. Can you tell? Let me see. No, you could not. I just had to port it over. Starting soon indeed. Making sure all my settings are right. Your whispers are loud. I don't know how different the fancy mic with the pop filter sounds in comparison to the internal microphone in the laptop. All right, see you soon, Allie. All right, let's get started. Good morning, my Sakonauts. Joyous time zones, rather. My Sakonauts. I'm Sako Tumi, also known as Cast Void. Just read the fucking script, Sako. For real. Joyous time zones, my Sakonauts. I'm Sako Tumi, also known as the Witch of Tylwyth Teg, and today we are talking about self-examination in Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine. Okay. This is a great chapter. It's definitely shadow work. So this is the shadow work episode. Hello, Spence. I'm so glad you could make it. I know you've been writing up a storm and all of that jazz. Maybe the break is welcome. I need to edit my overlays and whatnot. Because I noticed it's got the YouTube puts a logo in the lower left, lower right, our right, my left. And I don't need two versions of my thing. Actually finished the draft a little bit ago. You finished your epilogue. You wrote the end. I'm so glad. That's really exciting. Hooray for project completion. My brain is now tapped out of the writing game. 12,761 words, the end included. Holy crap. Oh my God, meow. I'm thinking about doing that 24 and 36 writing challenge. Hi, Cat Leo. Awesome to see you. And then see if I can crank out a little bit of my novel or do some flash fictions. Collection of flash fiction. I need to do more with Enzo. I just gotta be careful what timeline I use. Because he gets progressively older with each book that I write. And I want to have short stories in between each book just to kind of keep people interested. Which means I need to, so I'm going to upload my short story for Panda after the contest works out. I have a handful of things I want to adjust in this draft before I print it out and check it in your drawer. Yeah, I got you. But you deserve a break. You do. How do you guys feel about a grounding ritual to start your day? Since I have my fancy microphone plugged in. How do you guys feel about grounding ritual today to start your morning? Especially with the write-a-thon going on. It's just gotta get some damn queso. All right, let's do this thing. Sit with your hands in your lap and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it for a moment. And as you let it out completely through your mouth, let go of the tension from the night and the grogginess of the morning. Take another deep breath in. As you breathe in, imagine you are breathing in pure love. As you breathe out, imagine you are breathing out forgiveness. Take a third deep breath in, and as you do so, imagine a light coming in at the top of your head. It enters at the top of your head and spreads down over your face, neck, and shoulders. This cleansing light now expands along your back, down your legs, and out through your feet. It is as if cleansing light is a constant flow of soothing energy entering from your head and passing out through the arches of your feet. You are just outside the door of your domain. The air is crisp and cool. The evergreens sway slightly in the breeze, and the ground has a large patch of moss at your feet. Step barefoot onto the moss. Feel how soft it is. Feel the solid ground underneath. That light coming into your head can now be translated into energy that you can send out your feet. Convert the light into roots and send the roots out the bottoms of your feet and deep into the earth, as deep as you can. The soil is fresh, easy to toil, easy to carve a path down. Feel how anchored you are, how close to the earth. Reach as far down as you can. The earth hugs your roots comfortably, no matter how sharp or curly, no matter how many times they split off. Slowly pull the roots back up the way they came. Your roots slither through the dark, the soil filling in its wake. Pull the roots back into your feet, convert it back to the light, and let the light filter through you and out the top of your head. Take one more deep breath in and begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. When you are ready, open your eyes. Welcome. If you're just joining us, we just did our morning grounding ritual. If I pick a Friday, I'll switch it from Twitch to YouTube, where it's easier for me to have guests. Going to be hosting every Friday, Tuesday, and Sunday in April because it's Camp Nano. Oh, I see. I will assess that later. Normally, I would talk about supporting me in some fashion. I do have a Ko-fi account linked in the description below, but until then, you can join me for coffee in the mornings here on YouTube. I need to write more meditations. Maybe I'll do that during the sprints today. What kind of meditations would you guys like? The grounding ritual is solid, but what would also be good first thing in the morning? I am taking suggestions. Maybe a cleansing, or, well, we do a cleansing every morning, so hold on. Because I do a cleansing and then I do a grounding thing. But we can do journey stuff. And I'll start Monday with the grounding ritual, and then I'll Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. There we go. I'll do like journey type. Oh, chakra cleaning. Yeah. We can tap into each of the chakras. Let me write that shiz down. It is Sunday. Did I draw it? I sure did. 'Cause I'm smart. I'm trying to remember when I slept. 10:30 to 8. Daylight savings time was today. Hi, Katerina. Chakra cleansings. Normally, I just kind of do it through visualization. So it'll be interesting to write out how I go about that. Well, a good scrub with steel wool is usually recommended, but the chakras might not like that. Yeah. Hey, sometimes steel wool is required, depending on how much baggage you're carrying. So which chakras should we do? We should do done for today in Oregon. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay. So we got the crown. We got the third eye. We got the throat. We got the heart, which is an important one. We should do the heart. The solar, the sacral, and the root. So I vote we do the third eye, the heart, the root, hooray, Chase! Yeah. So we're looking at Monday would be grounding. Tuesday, which would never happen. Wednesday would be third eye. Thursday would be heart. Friday, let's do sacral is something that a lot of people struggle with, right? I like to imagine a light through the head. Light turns to colors for the purpose. Yeah. So I'm somewhere between the solar chakra and the sacral chakra for Friday. which means my beginning breathing exercise is, I can probably reuse that with the light coming in with the cleansing and then we can convert the light into light, different color light, and I spaced an entire box of tissues. What? Oh, how did I misplace an entire box of tissues? I had them before I went to bed. Yeah. I know that however you do it, it will be amazing. Oh, geez, thanks. Maybe I'll alternate. So sometimes Friday I'll do a solar, and sometimes Friday I'll do a sacral. And then the root. Yeah. So I'll do that during the sprints today. Sleep sneezes. Okay. Let's do our card for today. Oh my gosh, we're already 20 minutes in. It's crazy. I should start compiling all the stuff that I'm taking with me to North Carolina. Make a packing list. Because I know my storytelling decks are, one is upstairs, one is downstairs. I am going on the 20th. So I will be in a different location for the stream on the 21st, which will be Zara Hoffman's Tarot, Trees and Tarot stream. I'm in South Carolina and my second vaccine on the 6th. Maybe we can meet. Oh, that'd be sweet. I'll be in Durham and then Raleigh and then Durham again. I'll have to ask my host, but that might be cool. Sleep sneezes are okay, but why does Snorchu sound like the cuddliest Pokemon? Yeah, Snorlax and Pikachu hybrid. So lazy and always hungry, but fiercely protective because same. Yeah. I'll have to check how far, but that might work. I have to be home in time for my doctor's appointment on Tuesday. So what could happen is I make a detour, but a trip to South Carolina is a long one. So I'm already driving 5 hours out of my way. So to add another 3 or 4, probably not high on my list of wants. Especially since I top out at 7 hours. All right, one more shuffle and then we'll do this. Oh. All right, one more shuffle and then we'll do this. Okay. Ooh, Six of Pentacles. Six. Oh, well, I was hoping I could get my boyfriend to drive me to you and we can get a coffee. Four hours is a little long for your boyfriend to drive us, huh? Six of Pentacles. My sister I'm close with is in Virginia, so maybe then. Where in Virginia? It can take upwards to 4 hours or 5 hours to get out of my state, so it matters. 3 hours to get down on 95, but if I'm going out the Panhandle, it takes forever. Going to Passover 2022. Giving and receiving are now giving and receiving are in divine balance, creating a harmonious flow. Generosity fills your soul as you realize sharing your wealth with others is much more fulfilling than keeping it for yourself. You may feel inclined to donate to charity, give back to your community, or loan money to a loved one, trusting that you have more than enough to give. Investing in another person or organization is also investing in your beliefs and the future you want to live in. Giving doesn't just pertain to money, though. You could also give your talents and time, which are equally appreciated. On the other end of the spectrum, you may be the one receiving financial support or another's gifts. Oh, Herndon is close. Sorry, distracted by the chat. Okay. It is all connected, and good karma is coming back to you. Embrace the prosperity flowing in your life with grace and ease. The card of generosity and charity. So that's definitely a thing. I would totally be willing to drive out to Herndon. It's about 45 minutes. Depending on traffic, of course. Oh my God, bleep, 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 bleep. Oh, I see. Feel free to leave the group. I'm not going to leave. I'm busy at the moment. All right, let's talk about charting the self and self-examination. Yeah. Here are some preliminary exercises in self-examination. All they require is the honesty not to flinch from those parts of ourselves which we find unpalatable. I don't want to put your family at risk. By 2022, it shouldn't be a problem, though. I hope. Fingers crossed. I should be vaccinated by then. And also, the pandemic might be waning, I hope. Number 1, third person. Write an account of yourself written in the third person, as though another person were writing about you. Discuss your relative strengths and weaknesses, as though you were writing a work reference for yourself. Number 2, lists. Divide a sheet of paper into 2 halves. On one side, list your strengths, and on the other, your weaknesses. To go further, you consider life successes and life failure, fears and fantasy, etc. Continue by listing things which attract you and that which repels you. A Book of Blunders. Yeah, I know, right? Find a blank book and pour into it every instance in your life which you have found emotionally painful, feel guilty about, or embarrassed. The idea is not to try and rise above such events or to wallow in self-pity, but to gain an honest catalog of negative events which lurk in your personal past. I think you needed it, honey. The other day was taxing and a half. Also, welcome. Suppressions. Again, try to compile a list of those aspects of yourself which you struggle, to varying degrees, to repress. Fears, fantasies, desires, mad thoughts, etc. I think this is a job for the Book of Mirrors. Conversations. A good deal of our self-image is woven from the internal conversations we have with ourselves. Stories which we tell ourselves about what we can and can't do, or could do if only ... Identifying these conversations and how we uphold them is another step towards self-awareness. Number 6, destroying the stereotype. When you encounter someone who provokes your tendency to label them as an example of a stereotype, hippie, redneck, skinhead, fag, etc., quickly fire alternative suggestions to yourself about why that person might look as they do. See how many alternative identifications you can come up with. Mind you, this book was also written in 1995, so some of those words I probably shouldn't have read out loud. Storytelling. Watch other people in a room talking. How many stories can you create around them? Are the couple in the corner talking conspiracy, business, extramarital affair? Pattern recognition. As we move through life, we tend to develop habituated patterns of thought and behavior. One area of experience where these patterns can be dysfunctional is in relationships. For example, if you have become used to an open relationship with a partner, you might find a partner's desire that you become monogamous a restriction upon the sense of freedom. It is common to take habituated patterns of adaptation and survival across relationships, often to the detriment of new situations. Obviously, identifying these patterns is useful, particularly as we tend to hold on to them without realizing that they are no longer viable. My specialty, stories about strangers. Obsessional demons. We are bound by our past, bound to repeat patterns, programs written long ago, flow-charted in an infant's crabbed hand, meshed like a kitten-pulled wool, a language of critical moments in our personal histories. Years later, a gap opens in the world, and creatures of free will and freedom that we think we are suddenly vulnerable surprises us. Our sudden vulnerability surprises us. Caught off guard, we pause, and in that silence, ancient, innocent fingers deep within us pluck at strings, so that we jerk awkwardly in the grip of self-spawned monsters of the mind, obsessions. Defense mechanisms. The more value we place on upholding a particular emotional pattern, the more likely it is that all ambiguous signals will be perceived as supporting it. Evidence which counters it will most likely be overlooked or rationalized into more malleable form. Conflict arises when dissonance occurs between desires and existing mental constructs. Have you ever feared the strength of your own desire? To cope with such conflicts, a variety of defense mechanisms can be adopted. Not that you should, but it is something to be aware of. Aggression. A typical response to frustrated desire and loss of control, loss of devouring dreams. We can direct it at the source of our frustration or direct it onto others. I don't think can is the right verb. Apathy. Loss of control, loss of faith and self-worth. The machine stops. Regression. Adult, who, me? A return to a childlike me. Cry hard enough and someone will come and comfort us. Perhaps we have learned that through tears we can control others. Sublimination. In other words, putting a brave face on it, redirecting the energy into a more acceptable form. But demons are cunning. Kick them down the front stairs and they will come sneaking around the back, waiting with spider calm until you leave the door of your mind ajar. There's only so long you can repress stuff. Intellectualization. Displacing feelings with words. A quick lie for the aesthetic becomes a fast buck for the lay analyst. Such strategies are normal, that is, until they become obsessive. A locked-up loop as automatic as breathing. Out of control. Fantasy. Fantasy is the cornerstone of obsession, where imagination is trussed up like battery-farmed chicken. Catharsis eventually becomes catastrophic. Walter Mitty lives in all of us in varying sized corners. We use starter fantasies to weave meaning into new situation, maintainer fantasies to prop up a boring task, and stopper fantasies to persuade ourselves that it's better not to ... A fantasy has tremendous power, and in a period of high anxiety, we can imagine 1,000 outcomes, good and bad, but mostly good, of what the dreaded or hoped for moment will bring. Oh, a specialty. Or was a specialty. So that is a thing you've gotten better about? The fantasy exists in a continual tension between the desire to fulfill it and the desire to maintain it, to keep from losing it. Of course, any movement to realize it threatens its existence. A closed loop is the result, shored up by our favorite defense mechanisms, whipped up by fear of failure and lust of result. The obsession clouds all reason, impairs the ability to act, makes anything secondary to seem unimportant. It's a double-blind tug-of-war. The desire to maintain the fantasy may be stronger than the desire to make it real. In classical occult terms, I am describing a thought form, a monster bred from the darker recesses of mind, fed by psychic energy, clothed in imagination, and nurtured by umbilical cords which twist through years of growth. We all have our personal tunnels of set in our ways through habit and patterns piling on top of each other. The thought form rides us like a monkey, its tail wrapped firmly around the spine of a self lost to us years ago, an earlier version threshing blindly in a moment of fear, pain, or desire. Hold on. I'm glad you've made that progress in your life. Let's see, where was I? Thus we are formed in a moment of loss, and in a moment of loss, we feel the monster's hot breath against our backs, its claws digging into muscle and flesh. Oh, they forgot to, typos, and there's all kinds of weird, I wish I had edited this book. We danced to the pull of strings that were woven years ago, an enlightening flash of insight, or better yet, the gentle admonitions of a friend. We may see the lie, the program. What, the monster? The thought form. It is first necessary to see that there is a program. To say, perhaps, this creature is mine, but not wholly me. What follows then is that the prey becomes the hunter, pulling apart the obsession, naming its parts, searching for fragments of understanding in its entrails, shrinking it, devouring it, peeling the layers of onion skin. This is in itself a magic as powerful as any sorcery. Unbinding the knots that we have tied and tangled, sorting out the threads of experience and color-coding the chains of chance. It may leave us freer, more able to act effectively and less likely to repeat old mistakes. The thing has a Chinese puzzle like nature. We can perceive only the present, and it requires intense shifting through memory to see the scaffolding beneath. The grip of obsession upon us has 3 components. My sister was especially angsty and liked to hang out down there. Shedding like a dog. All right. 3 components. Cognitive, our thoughts and feelings in relation to the situation. This must be ruthlessly analyzed and cut down by self-assessment, banishing, or some similar energy. Physiological, anxiety responses of heart rate, muscle tone, and blood pressure. The body must be stilled by relaxation and meditation. Behavioral. What we must do or more often not do. Often our obsessive behavior is entirely inappropriate and potentially damaging to others. Usually it takes other people to point this out. Analytic techniques such as I Ching or Tarot may be useful. Breaking bounds. A simple yet effective approach to ego magic is to use a positive ego identification to overcome a negative ego identification. For example, I hate mathematics. As a teenager, I often cut school classes in mathematics and would go to any lengths to avoid anything which involved algebra or logical formulas. According to a child psychologist, I had developed a mathematics block, which has, up until recently, remained pretty unshakable. The I know I cannot do mathematical things self-statement is the negative ego identification here. My example of a positive ego identification is I can get computers to do what I want them to. Since moving to my present company, I have gained the reputation for being the person to ask about computer problems, mainly due to the fact that I read the manuals, experiment with the programs, and like customizing them when I'm allowed. The two ego identifications came together quite suddenly when I was asked to develop a series of databases to cover a series of tasks. This was no problem initially, but suddenly I found that I had to set up mathematical formula for calculating value-added tax or differing percentage discounts on products. Here, the two ego identifications came into direct conflict. I should point out that my awareness that this was the case arose gradually through the task, and in the end, the stronger of the two was the identification that I can make computers do things, which has in turn weakened my resistance to mathematical things. Yes, shadow work. This is not so much a conscious process of setting one identification against another, but more of becoming aware of what is happening during such a transaction. The breaking of such conditioned barriers can be observed when an individual assumes a sexual identity, particularly if the identity has been associated with negative conditioning, such as being homosexual or transvestite. There is usually a conflict between one's own perceived nature, negative ego conditioning, and the desire to act upon the basis of self-identification. So the self-statement, am I really one of those, becomes associated with both desire and self-loathing. I think there are many things that are outdated in here. Many selves. One idea that is becoming more popular is the concept of the Legion of Selves, something that both New Agers and Chaos Magicians find attractive. Rather than pursuing the dualistic fondness for higher and lower selves, ego and superegos, etc., there is the idea that we are a multiplicity of identities out of which the sense of self-identity emerges. A similar idea exists in some tantric philosophies that Shiva, or consciousness, is surrounded by a bag of Shaktis, but that he's not fucking all of them at once. Here, the approach is to identify the different selves and give them all the situation befits. Let me try that again. Selves, and give them all, as your situation befits, a turn at being the one which is in the seat of identity. It can be helpful to define a number of distinct personalities which you can flip in and out of as the need arises. Oh, Jenny, you forgot to put the coffee in the thing. Some mornings we need help. the neutral self. You hold yourself as slightly distant and aloof from other people so that you can observe them covertly, finding out their strengths and weaknesses. You are quiet and economical in your movements. Every word you speak is measured, and you are not given to verbosity by any means. You rarely demonstrate disapproval, or for that matter, approval, and seem to accept other people's behavior as a matter of course. Like people who don't tip. I need lots of help this morning. Hubby told me I have too much attitude, and that's because I need coffee. Freedom of belief. One aspect of chaos magic that seems to upset some people is the chaos magicians, or chaot, if you like. He spells it chaoist, but I always learned it chaot. Or chaot, if you like. Occasional fondness for working with images culled from non-historical sources, such as invoking H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos beings, mapping the Rocky Horror Show, or onto the Tree of Life, slamming through the astral void in an X-Wing fighter, and channeling communications from gods that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. So you might see why using this sort of thing as a basis for serious magical work raises one or two eyebrows in some quarters. Isn't after all the Lovecraft stuff fiction? What about linking in with inner plane contacts, traditions, etc.? Surely you can't do magic with something that doesn't bear any relation to history or mythology. In the past, such criticisms have been raised over the subject of magicians working with fictional entities. In this section, I hope to argue the case against these objections. The first point to make is that the magic requires a belief system within which we can work. The belief system is the symbolic and linguistic construct through which the magician learns to interpret her experiences, and can range from anything between good old traditional Kabbalah to all this new age, I heard it off a Reddit Indian shaman honest stuff that seems to be so popular nowadays. It doesn't matter which belief system you use, so long as it turns you on. Right? Read that again. It's important. It doesn't matter which belief system you use, so long as it turns you on. Eventually, most magicians seem to develop their own magical systems, which work fine for them, but are a bit mind-boggling for others to use. Austin Osman Spare's Alphabet of Desire is a good example. A key to magical success is the veracity of belief. If you want to try something out and you can come up with a plausible explanation as to why or how it should work, then it most likely will. Pseudoscience or Kabbalistic gibber, or both. It matters not so long as the rationale you devise buffers the strength of your belief in the idea working. I find that this happens a lot when I try to push the limits of some magical action I haven't tried before. Once I come up with the plausible explanation of how it could work in theory, then, of course, I am much more confident about doing it and can often transmit this confidence to others. If I'm 110% that this ritual is going to bloody work, then it's all the more likely that it will. You can experiment with this using the technique of belief shifting or metaprogramming, for example, using the chakras. The popular view of chakras is that we have 7. Okay, so meditate on your chakras, hammer the symbolism into your head, and presto, you start having the 7 chakra experiences. Now switch to using this 5 Sephiroth of Israel Regardie's middle pillar Kabbalah, which is, as the psychic centers in your body, and sure enough, you'll get accordant results. Get the idea? Any belief system can be used as a basis for magic, so long as you invest belief into it. Looking back at my earlier magical experiments, I guess that what used to be important for me was the strong belief that the system I was using was ancient, based on traditional formulae, etc. A belief system can be seen as a matrix of information into which we can pour emotional energy. We do as much when we become so engrossed in watching a play, film, or TV program that for a moment it becomes real for us and invokes appropriate emotions. Much of what we see on the silver screen is powerful mythic images and situations, repacked for modern tastes, which is a cue to start going on about Star Trek. More people are familiar with the universe of Star Trek than any of the mystery religions. It's a safe bet that more people know who Mr. Spock is than they know who Luke is. The Star Trek universe has a high fantasy content and seemingly few points of contact with our everyday worlds of experience. Yet Star Trek is a modern mythic reflection of our psychology. The characters embody specific qualities. Spock is logical, Sulu is often portrayed as a martial figure, Scotty is a master builder, and Kirk is an arbitrator. As we get into Star Trek universe, we find greater depth and subtlety. We find that the universe has its own rules, which the characters are subject to, and is internally consistent. In each episode, we may find that we are being given insights into the personal world of a key character. Like our everyday worlds, the universe of Star Trek has a boundary beyond which is the unknown, the future unexplored space, the consequences of our actions, whatever wild cards that we may be dealt. So we watch and enter as an observer the unfolding of a mythic event. We can increase this sense of participation through a role-playing game, where group belief allows us to generate for a few hours at least the semblance of a Star Trek universe in the comfort of our sitting room. It's relatively easy to generate the Star Trek world due to the plethora of books, comics, videos, and role-playing game supplements which are available to support that universe. One of my colleagues had to sit for a computer exam and was racking his brain trying to think of an appropriate god form to invoke to concentrate his mind on programming. Mercury, Hermes. Then he hit on it. The most powerful mythic figure that he knew that could deal with computers was Mr. Spock. So he proceeded to learn all he could about Spock and went around saying, "I will never understand humans," until he was thoroughly Spockified. The result he achieved in the examination was higher than he otherwise would have expected. And so, back to the Cthulhu mythos, Lovecraft himself believed that fear, particularly fear of the unknown, was the strongest emotion attached to the Great Old Ones. I like to work with that mythos occasionally because the Great Old Ones are outside most human mythologies, reflecting the shadows of the giants in Norse myth, the pre-Olympian titans in Greek myths, and the groups of universe builders who are thought to be too chaotic for polite company of the gods of the ordered universe. For me, too, the nature of the Great Old Ones as shadowy beings who can only be particularly glimpsed is attractive. They can't be assimilated and bound into any orthodox systems of magic, and I get much fun from working out suitable approaches for working with them. The Great Old Ones have a primal nature, which for me provides the there we go. I guess that's my hint that I should be wrapping up. But I'm so close to done. Having said all that, hold on. The great old ones have a very primal nature, which for me provides the emotional buffer for magical exploration. Having said all that, and perhaps left you thinking, oh, weird person, he likes messing around with tentacled slimies, I might also mention that I've had some interesting results from working with a mythic system based on Blush, C.S. Lewis's Narnia books. The interesting thing about metaprogramming is that you can adopt a belief for a relatively short time and then drop it again. When practicing ritual magic, it's generally a good idea to behave as if gods are real. Whatever you think about there being archetypes or reflections of bits of yourself or whatever. So in Cthulhu mythos ritual, nothing will help you build the necessary tension than the adopted belief that if you get it wrong, Cthulhu will slime you. Of course, outside the ritual, you don't have to believe in Cthulhu, that even now a slimy paw appears at my window. No! Sorry about that. Related to this is the idea that suspension of disbelief can also be useful. To do this, take a book which expounds on an idea that you find totally crap. Every magician has their favorite crap author. And try to see the writer's message without your inner voice hurling abuse at the page. One of the most difficult suspensions for fledgling magicians is overcoming the nagging doubt that all this stuff doesn't work. Despite hours of talk and reading vast tomes by Crowley et al., that nagging disbelief can still be heard and can be dispelled by experience. One act that shows you that magic works is worth 1,000 arguments. Intensity of belief is the key which allows magical systems to work, whether they are related to historical traditions, which are, let's face it, often rewritten anyway, esoteric traditions, which have evolved down the centuries as well, or based on fiction and TV. It's your ability to be emotively moved or to use them as vehicles for the expression of your will that counts. If it works for you, do it. Now we're getting into the chapter that I am at, Kali in the Disco, which we will talk about invoking tomorrow. Bad advice, Mallard. Quack, quack. If you liked this video at any point, I recommend that you hit that like button. If you, and I do strongly recommend rewatching this and like doing the self-examination stuff in your Book of Mirrors. But if you would like to see what we do regarding invoking Kali, then you might want to subscribe or ring that bell so that it actually notifies you when I go live. And I will catch you guys on the flip side.